watch all the details of how the governance works and how compensation of the nodes works and all of those things. But I want to talk about just the technology underneath it, the core of it, what is Hashgraph underneath this thing. So Hashgraph consensus is a way of getting consensus for a group of computers on what order the transactions are in and what timestamp should be on each of those transactions. When did the community get that transaction? Not just a timestamp of when the creator of the transaction claims it was created, or when one single miner claims it was created. This is a community consensus on the timestamp, a community consensus on what order the transactions are in, and then once you know the order, you can do cryptocurrency transactions and make sure that they're good. You can do file storage and deletion and revocation services and make sure it's correct. Make sure that immutable things that should be immutable are immutable. You can do smart contracts and rely on their outcomes. All of that is built on top of this. But this is the consensus algorithm. This is the bottom layer where it comes to consensus. And the important thing is that it's fast, fair, and secure. I want to talk a little bit about what this means, because it's somewhat unusual in the way that it is secure and the way that it is fast, and then this fairness property, which is a new thing and I think widely misunderstood. We can talk some about that. So, in what sense is it secure? We have Byzantine fault tolerance. Better than that, we have asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. So what is that? So we have to come to consensus. All of these computers have to agree what was the timestamp and what was the order for each transaction. BFT means we will come to an agreement. Not only that, we will know when we have come to agreement. There is an instant in time when you know 100% sure, for sure, that we now have agreement. This is where it goes in history. It's not like each confirmation makes you a little bit more sure and you just keep getting more sure forever. No, there's a moment when you know exactly what has happened. That's Byzantine. And no one bad computer can stop you. No small group of bad computers can stop you. No malicious firewalls that slow down some of your packets and delete some of your packets can stop you. This is resilient to Byzantine attacks. So it's Byzantine fault tolerant, which means that you will come to consensus. We will all come to the same consensus. You'll never change your mind, and you know you're right, even in the face of these sorts of attacks. That's what BFT is. But there's different kinds of BFT. In order to prove that really great result, you have to make some assumptions. And the different kinds of a BFT control what kinds of assumptions you have to make. So the best thing, the weakest assumptions, the strongest kind of BFT is ABFT, asynchronous BFT. So what does that mean? What that means is we're not going to make assumptions about timing and about packets getting deleted over the internet. What that really means is that we can be resilient to things like denial of service attacks. So just like some of these proof of work systems weren't even BFT to begin with, because they never really know that you know for sure. Many of these leader-based systems are not asynchronous BFT. So imagine this. You can reach consensus by one computer's the boss. Everyone sends it the transactions, it puts them in order, and sends them back out. Now we have agreement. The problem is, what if an attacker has a botnet? They've gone out to the internet and hacked into lots of web cameras and printers and little computers across the internet, and they've programmed them all to flood your leader with packets. Your leader can be flooded so much that it just cannot send or receive information. It basically is shut down by this attack. This is a DDoS attack. These DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, do happen. It's a big deal. The Dyna attack last fall was interesting. There's a lot of interesting things that happen in this space. We want to be resilient. Notice I didn't say that we want to be totally invulnerable. Nothing in life is totally invulnerable. If you can shut down every single computer in the network, then of course the network stops working. That's obvious. But you don't want to shut down when just one computer shuts down. And you could say, well, maybe we can be resilient by picking a new leader. Maybe we can be even more resilient by every 2 seconds we'll have a new leader. They're distributed proof of stake systems where you just take turns being leader every 2 seconds. The problem is, even those kinds of leader-based systems, the attacker knows when you're going to switch. So the attacker can attack the leader for 2 seconds, and then when you switch, attack the new leader for 2 seconds, and just follow the leader. And you still have a problem. So we want to be truly decentralized. We want to be actually distributed. We don't want to have a leader, even for 2 seconds. We want to say, okay, attackers, if you want to shut us down, you can't shut down one computer at a time. You can't shut down a few. You'd have to shut down a full third of the network to actually cause us problems, which math says is the best you can do. We want to reach that kind of resilience. So we're asynchronous BFT. And there are even people who propose terms that sound sort of like ABFT, but are actually something different, and that are not as strong. We don't want that. We want ABFT. It's an old term. It's decades old. It's the gold standard in this community for decades. Before there was blockchains, there was distributed databases, and there was distributed fault tolerance in these communities. We want the asynchronous BFT, the gold standard. And so that's what Hashgraph is. It achieves that. There's never a leader even for a moment. It is completely decentralized and completely distributed. And so we will have millions of nodes around the world doing this, and as long as each of our shards is big enough to resist this attack, then we're resilient to this attack. So that's important. We have something else, too. We have what we're calling a state proof. You know, you have this network doing, say, a cryptocurrency, and the wallet on your phone calls up one of the computers in the network and says, hey, could you please do a transaction for me? Please move cryptocurrency from this account to this account. Or please store this file for me. Or please run this smart contract for me. And tell me what the balance is of this node. Or tell me whether this file exists. And the computer tells you, congratulations, that file does not exist. Congratulations, your cryptocurrency transaction did go through. Congratulations, here's the balance. And you trust them. Wait. Do you trust that random computer that just happens to be one of the nodes to tell you the truth? When they say that file is gone, does that mean that file is gone? When they say they really did do your transaction, do you know that's true? With a state proof, they hand you this little proof, and it is a guaranteed, cryptographically strong proof that the community as a whole reached consensus on this fact. It's the community as a whole telling you that file doesn't exist, that your transaction went through, that there is this much balance in this cryptocurrency account. It's the community as a whole attesting to it. That's incredibly important because it's all about trust. I don't want to have to trust one node. Or I call a node and ask it to do my transaction. It says, no problem, I did it for you. Well, now you can check up on it and say, okay, please give me the proof from the community that you did it for me. So those are state proofs. It's another kind of trust, but it's very important. So with state proofs, we can do that. And you know, I keep saying the community. What if some malicious nodes decide to fork our state and make two communities? How do you know which one you're talking to? What if we have our ledger and it knows the state, the balance of all of the accounts, and someone makes a copy of it and gets several friends to start running a network with that copy of the state? You have the original state and the copy of the state. You fork the state, and then each keeps evolving over time and changing. And then the poor wallet program on your phone calls some node that it's called in the past. How does it know whether the node is still part of the true consensus state and its evolution, or is it on this fake one that got split off? This is a kind of forking that can be a problem. I can't stop people from copying the state, but we can stop them from lying about it. The state proofs allow you to do that. They not only prove to you that it's the consensus of the community, they prove to you what community it is. And if someone wants to start some other fake community, they have to admit it. They have to admit, we're the new upstart, we're a new community entirely. We are not part of the original. And so, in that sense of forking, not forking the code base, but forking the state, we have no forking. It's cryptographically strong. Yeah, isn't that funny? I love that. We came this close to having one of the people on the stage 2 nights ago wear a t-shirt with a no fork symbol on it. And this is a different kind of forking. We also want to not have forking of the code base, and we have other things for that. But this is forking of the state. And of course it doesn't stop you from making copies, but it stops you from lying about it. It stops you from confusing people about it. And I think that's important. So that's what state proofs give you. Now for speed, you don't want sharding. Sharding is breaking up into chunks of computers rather than have all the computers do the same thing. And this state proof turns out to even be important for things like sharding. So, any network, we want to be fast. We want to do hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, even in a single shard, but then we want to have multiple groups of computers to give us millions of transactions per second, or billions or trillions. It depends on how many planets you have running servers in your shard, in your system. We want to have lots of shards. So all we do is we take all of our nodes, we break them up into groups, we call the groups shards. We want each shard to be fast. That is important. You don't always get benefits from sharding. Some applications really do need single shards to be fast. But we also want to have multiple shards. Now, of course, how do you do this? Well, we can have a main shard and then side shards. You can have a main chain and then have side chains. There are ways of doing that, but there are some limitations to that by being not so decentralized in your sharding. What would be better is to be truly decentralized. All the shards are kind of on a par. When you have an account, your account is stored in one of those shards. And my account is maybe stored in a different shard. And there's no master shard that we both have to coordinate with that is now a bottleneck for us. We just all have different shards in the different accounts. If you move cryptocurrency between two accounts in the same shard, it only slows down that shard. Only that shard has to process the transaction. But what if you have to move cryptocurrency between two accounts in different shards? What if we have to somehow do things between shards? We could, of course, send this information eventually to the master shard, but I don't like that. It becomes a bottleneck. It becomes an interesting problem. I would rather have it truly decentralized, truly distributed. We just have one shard tell the other shard, we need to move the money, or we need to move the file, or we need to move the asset, or we need to move the cryptocurrency. This is what we're talking about. Well, great. So what we'll do is Alice wants to move her cryptocurrency to Bob, from her account to Bob's account. They happen to be in two different shards. We have lots of shards out there. Most of them will completely ignore us. Only those two are involved. Alice will send her transaction that she has signed to authorize it to her shard, the shard that happens to have her account. It will reach consensus through the way I was just talking about, asynchronous, visiting, fault tolerant, all of that. That shard by itself can handle hundreds of thousands a second with latency in a few seconds. And once they finally reach consensus in a few seconds, we now have this one decrementing her account. She wanted to send 10 coins. She now has 10 fewer coins in her account. In addition, that shard sends a message to the shard of Bob's and says, please put 10 more coins into Bob's account. Great. Wait a second. The shard sends a message to the shard. I didn't say a computer sends a message to a computer, because what if it lies? What if it were to lie and say, okay, I just deducted from Alice, please add on to Bob, but lied about the deducting from Alice? That would be a disaster. So we have a message from the shard going to the other shard. The message was the consensus of the whole shard. It was our agreement as a shard that we should send this message saying we have officially deducted from Alice. It is now safe to officially add to Bob. So what we'll have is all these computers over here in this shard. We'll be randomly picking computers in this shard and handing them that message over and over again until finally an honest computer sends it to an honest computer and it gets spread throughout this shard. And then the one with Bob will reach consensus and will then add to Bob's account. Beautiful. And how do we know that this message is real? The state proof. That's how you do it. These random computers, call these random computers, pass them the message, hey, this is a message from my shard to your shard. And here's the state proof that proves it's a true consensus message from my shard to your shard. In this way, you can scale up to as many shards as you have. That's how fast you can go. There's no limit in some sense to how fast you can go, because there's no master shard that becomes a bottleneck. There's no limit. And again, that's tremendously helpful in many cases, but not in all. You want the shards themselves to be fast. We also want fairness. We want fairness in our timestamps. We want to be able to say that a transaction gets a community's consensus timestamp on when it reached the community. But the community is more than one computer. What does it even mean to say the time at which you reach the community? I think the most reasonable is to say, when did you reach most of the community? If there's one straggler that took a long time, I don't want to penalize you for that. And if you just only reached one computer, I want to give you a benefit for that. I'll say the reasonable thing is to say it's when you reach the community as a whole, it's when you reach most of the people in the community, most of the computers. In fact, that just means that I ask every computer, when did you receive it? Put all those times in a list and we sort and take the middle one. That is what the timestamp ought to be. Fairness says that's hard to corrupt. If one computer says, no, I received it a million years in the future, fine. Their time goes to the top of the list. But all those times in the middle that are all about the same, we're still picking one of those. So we haven't really affected the timestamp very much. Because you're going to have a whole bunch in the middle of the same and then some outliers at the top and bottom. And if one computer says, no, I received it a million years ago,
We don't care. Now I'm assuming that's 10 minutes. It is. Thank you very much. I love adapting in real time. My 20-minute talk just turned into a 30-minute talk. I thank you for that. I love having more time. Wonderful. So this consensus algorithm is a leader-based one. I follow this leader. Do what she says. But Hedera is not. It is not leader-based. It's going to be able to drag it very much off. No few set of nodes is going to drag it very far off. Because if they say a million years in the future or the past, then they just get put at the top and the bottom of the list. And the middle of the list is still one of those middle times. That's fairness. Fairness is you can't corrupt it easily. Now, if all of us are lying, then of course you're out of luck. But if most of the times on that list came from honest people, then guess what? Guaranteed, the middle time on that list is from an honest person or is between two honest people. Guaranteed, if most of those times are honest. That's the beauty of the median. It does a great job of excluding outliers. So we have fairness of timestamps. The truth is when you reach most of the community. And the consensus timestamp is going to be close to that. It's going to be very hard to corrupt it. If I know a consensus timestamp on every transaction, and the community has agreed, I can put them in order according to timestamp, and that gives me a consensus order. And now my consensus order is fair. It's going to be what it ought to be, reflecting when we reach the community. If I put a bid into an auction, and you put a bid into the auction at the same price, we want the winner to be whoever bid first. We're going to look at those timestamps. That will give us our ordering, and our ordering will be fair. It is hard for any one bad actor or small group of bad actors to unduly influence the ordering. So we have fair ordering. We have fairness of ordering and fairness of timestamps. And that's what we mean by fairness. And we can also say, well, all ledgers are fair in some sense because they're immutable, and I love that. Fair is a very broad word. But when I'm talking about fairness, I'm talking about these specific things. The fairness of the timestamp, you can't drag it far from when you reach most of the community. Fairness of ordering, you can't drag it far from what it should be based on when you truly reach the community. Fairness of access is simply saying that we are using the very simplest gossip protocol to get information out. There is no leader that could arbitrarily delete your message, and so it's really hard for an attacker to stop you from getting your message out. You have access to this community in about as fair a way as an internet system could possibly be. I mean, specifically, if we had a proof of work system with miners, then whichever miner mines the next block is free to leave out your transaction if they want. You can say, well, I'm going to pay them $1. Okay, maybe my competitor bribed them $1 million not to put mine in. That's a problem. Or if we have a leader-based system, everybody sends your transactions to the boss and they'll put them in order and tell us the order. Well, what if they just leave out my transaction? That's not good. But in this system, you just call up any node and say, please gossip it, and then they call people as fast as they can, giving them your transaction. And each of them then starts calling people as fast as they can, giving them their transaction. In fact, you're calling multiple people at the same time. It spreads like wildfire. A bad node isn't going to hurt you. The only thing that would hurt you is if that very first node was bad. But guess what? You can call 10 nodes at once if you want. Give your transaction to 10 nodes at the same time. And now, it's hard to stop. So access is fair. Yes, if the backhoe in your backyard cuts your connection to the internet, you don't get online. Life is unfair. Yes, you don't have fairness. It's unfair. But it's not a problem with the protocol. Yes, so that's where we are. So that's what we mean by fairness. We don't mean life is fair. What we mean is we have fair timestamps, fair ordering, fair access in these senses. And so we have that. I think it's important. And honestly, there are applications where it doesn't matter. But there are applications, auctions and stock markets and games. If you shoot me and I dodge, do we care which one happened first? Yes. If you shot first, you get a point. If I dodge first, you don't. We care. And so, right, the financial industry is important. But if you want to get people who really think what they're doing is important, look at gamers. There you go. All right. In addition to that, it needs to be fast. Now, numbers are horrible because they don't mean anything until you give all the detail and context for them. And so I hate that everyone runs around saying, we do 1 million, we do 1,000, whatever. And now I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to say, we do 1 million, we do 1,000, or whatever. I'm guilty of the very thing I'm saying. Please, download the white paper. Read all the numbers. It's multiple graphs, each of which has multiple lines, each of which has multiple points with paragraphs explaining exactly what it's saying. Speed is not a number, it's an entire set of numbers and functions and things. So speed is complicated. But I'm going to do my best in my remaining 3.9 minutes to tell you about the speed of the system. So please understand that any number is a lie in some sense. I'm going to try to explain to you exactly what it means, but download the paper and get the details. Or better yet, we've got lots of our customers. Download the software and time it yourself. That's more fun. Okay. But what you want is hundreds of thousands of transactions per second in a single shard. Notice I said in a single shard. Yeah, you want a network that can do millions or billions or trillions per second. Absolutely. You have to go to multiple shards. And for those situations where all your transactions can be happening in different shards at the same time, you'll get it. Millions and billions and trillions with sharding, even if each shard was super slow. Even if each shard can only do one transaction per second, if you have a million shards, they each do their transaction in over a second, and now you've done a million per second. In some cases, you can get away with that, and that's beautiful. In some cases, you can't. Like, everybody needs to send Alice something. Everyone has to talk to the Alice shard. Now you're slowed down to the speed of a single shard. So I'm only going to show you numbers for a single shard. If you're lucky, infinite shards is infinitely faster. If you aren't lucky, this is how slow you run. That's what I'm going to show you as a single shard. I think it's important for comparisons to see that. Always ask that question. Great, I love that you're a trillion a second. How fast is a single shard? So, our performance is this. 2,000 transactions per second is what a major credit card does on average. They will peak up to 50,000, and the published requirements are sometimes something like 7 seconds latency. You swipe your card, they might require you that within 7 seconds you know for sure it went through or it didn't go through. For us, we see 50,000 transactions per second having just a couple of seconds latency, 2.9 seconds. When you are in 8 regions around the globe on 5 continents, AWS instances talking to each other, this is for a group of nodes as if our governing members were running it. So it's 32 nodes. You have this in 8 regions around the world on 5 continents. When we ask it to do 50,000 per second, we see a latency of 2.9 seconds. And this is sustained, not peak. We can actually do 50,000 sustained. Excellent. 2 minutes is wonderful. But what if we asked it to do more? What if we have to do twice that? At 100,000, it goes up less than half a second. Now we wait 3.3 seconds. There's all these trade-offs, but they're not bad. So if you want to be at the peak level of a credit card forever, you can do it at 2.9 seconds. If you want to double that, okay, now it's 3.3 seconds. You paid a penalty of less than half a second. Still way under the 7 seconds that they would require. Now that's if you want to be around the entire world with your shard, but what if you were willing to settle for merely a continent? Maybe sometimes a continent is okay. Maybe the United States, East Coast to West Coast, more than 2,000 miles, more than 3,000 kilometers. What if you wanted to do that? Well, in that case, you could go a little bit faster. You could go 250,000. You can go 250,000 transactions per second. 3 seconds latency still. To complete finality, guaranteed, in a single shard, of course you can get faster with more shards, but even in a single shard, you can do this. And just for fun, we wanted to try one region. I don't know if you want to do one region, but just for fun, what would it be? 500,000 transactions per second is what we saw on Amazon. Not very optimized, but this is early stuff. 500,000 per second and 3.5 seconds latency. Still very fast. There is a trade-off between latency and speed, throughput, and graphs in our paper show you that trade-off. So we also have to verify the signatures, and on a GPU, we were able to see 1 million signature verifications per second. So that's what we're seeing. We're secure, fair, and fast. And go to hashgraph.com and you can get all the details. Thank you very much.
Up now we have a fireside chat.